As 2024 comes to a close, it's now time to do my 4th yearly wrap-up on the channel. I always enjoy taking some time to reflect on my favorite games and pick one to take top honors as my overall game of the year. This year was a surprising one to say the least. We got the long-awaited returns of both top-down Zelda and the Mario and Luigi series. There were revivals no one saw coming, like brand new entries for both Endless Ocean and Famicom Detective Club. A wide variety of developers all played their part in creating new and innovative experiences, and this led to some fantastic games that I'll be thinking about fondly for years to come. This time I want to do things a little differently with my end of year discussion. Like usual, I want to pick out my 6 favorite video games that were released during the last calendar year, but this time I'm going to rank them in order from my number 6 counting down to my number 1 game of the year for 2024. Obviously, this list is personal to me, so it's going to reflect my own preferences. I think every game I mention here is great, and there are going to be many I don't mention that also deserve praise. It's been a busy end of the year, so at the time of writing this, I'm still working my way through Mario & Luigi Brothership. To me, it's one of the best looking and sounding games of the year. I'm really loving it, and it would probably be on this list if I was able to finish it in time. I also started playing Balatro recently, and the hours with this game have just melted away. It's become a go-to chill game for me that continues to impress with its depth and polish. Super Mario Party Jamboree is an amazing package that has quickly become one of my favorite multiplayer games on Switch, and seeing everything it has to offer was also one of the highlights of my year. But now, let's get into ranking the games that I enjoyed the absolute most this year, the ones that left an impact on me long after the credits rolled. A big thanks to everyone for being here, and please enjoy my Game of the Year list for 2024. While I appreciate when games tell a good story, that's not usually what I come for. I much prefer the tactile nature of games. How it feels to move, how engaged I am with each action, and the flow state I'll get into while playing. So naturally, I don't really rush towards something like a dialogue-heavy visual novel. And my thoughts about Emio the Smiling Man were no different at first. I very much enjoyed the other games in the series, the Switch remakes of The Missing Heir and The Girl Who Stands Behind that came out a few years ago, but I wouldn't call myself a fan of the franchise. My reaction to Emio, a brand new original game getting revealed and released this year, was more so one of amusement and intrigue than one of excitement for the title itself. I had actually made the decision to skip Emio at launch and come back around to it later, but as that time came around, I was surprised at how much chatter I was hearing about the game, especially compared to the 2021 revival remakes, which seemed to come and go without much fanfare. It didn't take long for me to completely crumble, buying Emio the Smiling Man and running through it over the course of a few days this summer. And after doing so, I can definitely understand the excitement much more. I think it's the best game in the series by a wide margin. It's still very much a point-and-click visual novel where, for the majority of the time, you're just cycling through dialogue. So if you're not a fan of that, you're not going to find any sort of breakthrough here. But as with all Famicom Detective Club games, you are here for the story and mystery above all else. And in that department, it definitely doesn't disappoint. Emio is very well written, with lovable, compelling characters and a strongly paced narrative that's satisfying throughout. I'm not going to give it away, but there's one part at the end where my jaw hit the floor. It was the biggest mind-blowing moment I've had in a video game since probably Future Redeemed, and I just had to sit there stunned for a few minutes taking it all in. If you can stand the slower pace, then I think Emio is well worth your time, and it's totally standalone, so while there are recurring characters and some references to earlier games, you're not going to miss out on anything major if you use this one as a starting point. Again, I don't really love these types of games, but I look back fondly at Emio the Smiling Man, and I think that speaks to its quality. I probably won't ever play it again, but it is great to see a passion project like this come to fruition, and my year in gaming was all the better for it. Usually when I look back at a year, it's the brand new games that stand out most. Even so, I couldn't in good faith put Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake any lower on my list. Maybe I'm biased, since DQ3 has been one of my favorite games since childhood when I first played it on the Game Boy Color. And following the reveal of this beautiful modern remake at the Dragon Quest Day livestream back in 2021, I was really looking forward to getting my hands on it. What surprised me most about this remake is kind of what I feared leading up to the release. A lot was changed from older versions. There were some really big changes, like new bosses and a new job class, to smaller ones, like new items and spells not present in the original. Clearly a lot of work went into reimagining Dragon Quest III for the modern day, and I'm happy to say that any fears I had were unfounded, as the majority of changes are a resounding success. Many quality of life additions, like being able to save at churches in every town, or resting until nighttime at the inns, will make going back to older versions in some ways pretty difficult. And new scenes, like flashbacks to the hero's father's journey, are a very nice touch that help give even more of a purpose to many of the stops on our quest. Add on top of this a stunning visual upgrade and solid voice acting, and it's safe to say that this is the best version of Dragon Quest III we've gotten so far. There's something to be said about a few of the changes making the game too easy, like the full HP and MP restore on level up does really reduce the challenge early game, but it didn't bother me all things considered, and I actually quite enjoyed the faster pace and lower amounts of backtracking. Plus, the original versions are always there if I want that more unforgiving old school feel. I also really liked searching out friendly monsters to recruit. It was fun to seek them out, often requiring dialogue clues from NPCs to pinpoint their spawn time and locations. And as someone who ran the new Monster Wrangler job class the whole way through, the rewards proved to be worthwhile too. Dragon Quest III HD 2D is not doing much new or different from other comparable RPGs, but it's impressive to see how this classic has been touched up and improved. Some of my best gaming memories this year were getting lost in Dragon Quest III all over again during the holidays, spending long sessions exploring the overworld, combing through each of the various towns, finding mini-medals, and grinding up my party's levels in each class. Plus, that iconic artwork and musical score made me feel like I was being transported back to a simpler time. I'm so glad to say that the long wait for Dragon Quest III Remake was worth it, and I'm thrilled to place it in my top 5 games of 2024. Splatoon 3 Side Order was definitely my biggest surprise of the year. Ever since the release of Splatoon 3, I was really looking forward to the story DLC. I couldn't get enough of the Octo expansion for Splatoon 2 when that came out, and I thought 3's base game single player was also fantastic. But when this DLC was revealed to be a roguelike tower climb, I was a little disappointed that this wouldn't be the big, lengthy Octo expansion 2 I was hoping for. And it's true, Side Order definitely isn't that. But what's surprising is I didn't feel like this was such a bad thing. In my opinion, Splatoon 3 Side Order just about rivals the Octo expansion, only its strengths are in completely different areas. For me, the biggest knock against Side Order is it's just not as big. There aren't nearly as many levels and it's definitely not as difficult. But when it hits, it is just as much fun, and that's what's most important. When it first came out, I couldn't put this game down, unable to stop until I had cleared my first run. One thing's for sure, Splatoon and a run-based roguelike is a combination I never knew I needed. It's a blast to clear floors and strategize about the different chips to pick to create a stronger build to survive the difficult later ones. The upgrades are smart and feel really meaningful when you unlock them. I grew to love certain weapons and gravitated towards certain ways to build up Agent 8's palette. For some runs, I felt like I had built it so well that I was completely unstoppable. Optimizing for damage and things like Lucky Bombs and the Pearl Drone let me clear out enemy waves in an instant, which gave me an intoxicating feeling of power. There's a good amount of replay value here too, as Side Order offers incentives to clear the Tower of Order with each of the mode's multitude of weapons, and new story cutscenes are there as rewards the more runs you clear. After a while, floors do feel very similar to each other though. Every run will have the same couple of floor types and bosses, which can definitely get old. There are some modified floors that add different effects and challenges, like the lights going out or the entire floor being covered in enemy ink, but these don't show up as often as they should. Even still, Side Order is an incredible experience despite its flaws. It has all of that unique Splatoon movement and game feel that I crave, combined with new roguelike strategy elements and the fast-paced survival we've come to know from modes like Salmon Run. I played way more of this than I thought, and it ended up being a huge part of my year, my fourth favorite game to be exact. Princess Peach Showtime does something pretty brilliant. Its levels are staged as a series of theater performances, which require Peach to don a variety of costumes, each granting her a unique ability that can, at times, completely alter the style of gameplay. This variety is what kept me so hooked with Princess Peach Showtime, to the point that I played nothing else until I 100%ed it over the course of a few weeks. Showtime's acts can vary from two-dimensional side-scroller to wide-open 3D environments ripe for exploration. And then, some shows go in completely different directions, like a slow-paced hunt for clues in a museum heist mystery or a musical rhythm game. Cowgirl Peach had me galloping across a runaway train at one moment and testing my fast fingers in a lasso challenge the next. The full package is like a multi-course meal, a sampler of various video game genres, and being able to freely select the shows I wanted to play ensured that no particular type ever grew stale. I've heard complaints about Princess Peach Showtime being a bit too easy, and I can definitely see where those are coming from. The game is not very hard if you're just on autopilot to reach the end of each level, but if you ask me, anyone that would dismiss Princess Peach Showtime because of that is completely missing the point. Here, the joy is not in the accomplishment, but in the experience. It's a thrill to see what's behind each door, taking in each exciting new scenario, enjoying the art and music, and discovering what kinds of genre-bending gameplay is in store. And not for nothing, but I felt a pretty strong sense of accomplishment working toward full completion too. Some of the most fun I had in gaming all year was going through each of these levels with a fine-tooth comb, making sure I had collected every ribbon and sparkle gem. Seeking out all secrets in these finely crafted stages is where the real challenge lies, and often there were hidden goodies that took me 3 or 4 run-throughs to even find. I really enjoyed the game's boss fights as well, with the final boss being one of my favorites in a long time. It's unfortunate that Princess Peach Showtime seems to be a bit underappreciated critically, but take it from me, it's one of the best new releases of the year, and it brought a smile to my face for the better part of last spring, as I was humming that Sparkle Theater theme song all the way through. Before this year, I had only played the ThousandYear Door once, and that was as a kid growing up. I really loved it then, and I remember thinking how great it was to have a follow-up to the N64 original, which I also liked a lot. And despite the fond memories, my actual recollection of the game was still a little bit hazy. It had been a really long time, and starting up the remake would be my first time playing the game in over a decade. Now that I'm older and able to look at video games in a more sophisticated way, I was curious to know if I would still feel the same magic with Paper Mario the ThousandYear Door as I did back during my original playthrough. And after playing it in 2024, I'm happy to say that not only does it hold up extremely well, but I've also grown a whole new appreciation for it, and now hold it in even higher regard. This is an old school Paper Mario game, so it has those timing-based button prompt attacks in its turn-based battles, something Mario RPGs have been known for. Combat is consistently engaging and satisfying, and there's some pretty nice depth to it if you're willing to think about how to optimize your badge selection and stat points at each level up. Each of the game's boss encounters are a grand spectacle, and they all have some sort of gimmick that changes things up, which kept me on my toes. We also need to talk about the visuals, because this game is a treat for the eyes. The original's timeless paper style meant it held up nicely over the years, but this remake is just a smoother and cleaner version all around. The colors pop, and that lets us enjoy the vibrant cutscenes and animations that much more. But maybe the most striking thing about the ThousandYear Door remake, to me, isn't any sort of new update or change. Straight up, it's the pure amount of care and detail, even to the smallest degree, that went into creating this game. The attention to detail and care in craft oozes out everywhere you look. From the fantastic soundtrack to the sharp, detailed, and hilarious dialogue that breaks the fourth wall countless times and never fails to make me crack a smile. And then there are the total subtleties, the tiny little details that didn't need to be here but are, because this game is so clearly a labor of love. The fact that there's a hint from your partner written for every scenario just in case you get stuck, or the fact that different objects in the world kick up dust or have a unique animation and sound when you hit them with the hammer. All of it combines to result in one of the richest worlds Nintendo has ever created. This type of stuff is often what can be lacking in many games today, but the Thousand-Year Door is a reminder of just how important the little details can be. It impressed me so much, and I was happy to now be able to enjoy some of the finer details that went right over my head as a kid. This easily would have been my game of the year this year if it wasn't for my number one. In years past, there have often been 2 or 3 games that are neck and neck, and I have to think pretty hard about what my game of the year is. But this past year, there was only one answer. For me, one game was head and shoulders above all the rest this year, and that's The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. First of all, I just need to express how happy I am that we have a new 2D Zelda, the first in a very long time. It's a type of game I just love and gravitate towards. Most years I find myself replaying one of the older ones, and this year it felt so good to finally have a new one to play instead. Recency bias is a thing, and I can definitely be affected by that. But as I sit here right now, a few months removed, I think Echoes of Wisdom could be the best top-down Zelda ever made, and my personal favorite. It floored me way back from its initial reveal when it showed off the innovative Echo mechanic. I grew progressively more and more mind-blown with each trailer, as more abilities were being shown off. And getting the final product in my hands and finally being able to experiment with everything was just as amazing as I expected. The game has over 120 echoes, creatures and objects from around the world that Zelda can summon to her command at any time. Each echo has its own special characteristics and unique interactions with the world around it. Echoes help Zelda explore the world, solve puzzles, and even fight enemies. Layer on top of this the fact that some of Zelda's other new abilities mesh seamlessly with all the echoes, and it adds even more staggering depth to the gameplay. All of this lets us do things in Echoes of Wisdom that were previously unimaginable in the top-down Zelda series. If you followed the release of this game on YouTube at all, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is also the biggest game in the series, featuring the largest map a top-down Zelda has ever had. It's a Hyrule that's full of secrets and fully explorable from the word go. It took me just over 35 hours to 100% Echoes of Wisdom, so there's no shortage of content here. And if I replay the game again, it will most likely be a very different experience. I'll find new interactions, new ways to solve environmental puzzles, and maybe I'll approach combat in different ways, or use the automatons more. My mind is already racing about all the new things I might do in a subsequent playthrough, yet despite all the newness in Echoes of Wisdom, it still feels so familiar. Echoes of Wisdom brings back traditional style lock-and key Zelda dungeons, and it was awesome to tackle our first new set of them in quite a long time. There were some definite standouts here that rank among the best in the series, the Faron Temple being one of my new all-time favorites. And naturally, each dungeon features a boss fight at the end, which can be handled in a variety of ways depending on the echoes you use. Much of the fun in Echoes of Wisdom is this type of experimentation, taking a look at your echoes and thinking about what might be the most useful one, wondering, trying, failing, but eventually succeeding. It's top-down Zelda taken to a whole new level. It's baffling to me that Echoes of Wisdom isn't in the conversation for Game of the Year at every single outlet, because for someone who's been playing video games for as long as I have, I need to keep it real and say what's being done here is so far beyond anything else I've played this year. And there are only a handful of games I can think of that can even be put on a similar level. The ecosystem will serve as inspiration for countless video games we'll see come out during the next next several years, and I'm looking forward to it. Echoes of Wisdom is a bold new step for 2D Zelda, and I think it's not only the most innovative game, but also my choice for the best game of 2024. So that's it for my list. While 2024 might not have had as many heavy hitters as last year, it was still filled with a lot of worthwhile experiences. What's most exciting though is that I know the best is yet to come, with Nintendo's next console on the horizon for 2025. The Switch generation has been amazing. We now get great first-party releases pretty much monthly. I started my YouTube channel this generation too, which allows me to share my excitement and passion for Nintendo with all of you. Beloved franchises are being revived and reimagined left and right, and I can think of countless moments this gen where I got a little emotional or had to confirm with myself that what I was seeing in that Nintendo Direct was actually real life and not a dream. It's a little bit sad to think that we might have just had the final year of the incredible Nintendo Switch, but here's hoping that next gen is just as incredible. I'll see you all in 2025, eagerly awaiting the news and the great year one games that are sure to be in our future. Thanks for sticking it out for another yearly wrap up with me on the channel. I'd love to know if anyone makes it to the end of these videos, so leave a comment if you did, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you next year.